Yeah.
But I wanted to talk, if you don't mind, about the court cards. Is that okay?
Well, I had a few questions first, and
Okay.
I wanted to bring in here before I forgot about them
Okay.
anyway. But let's go in a little bit into the history of the cards. And now the way I understand it, they go way back to Egyptian times, don't they?
Well, that has been very disputed. I believe it. The problem has been the Da Vinci Code. In fact, last weekend I was in California with Margaret Starbird, who wrote The Woman with the Alabaster Jar, which is the basis for the Da Vinci Code, the story of Jesus being married to Magdalene. Well, there was a tarot deck from Italy, probably maybe 14th century, and it began, I can't say the word because it's a long Italian word. I think it's Gringione deck. And she goes through it in her one thesis, which is the tarot trumps in the Holy Grail. She relates each of the major cards to a step to the step in the life of this marriage. And she says that the tarot is the catechism for the Grailists, who were the people that believed that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene, and it was hidden within the cards. My theory, and I mean, everything's a theory, but when you read her book, yeah, it makes perfect sense. But looking at today's decks, my cards don't have anything to do with Jesus and Mary Magdalene. They have to do with us now, today. My thought was that perhaps, they did come from, it's very shady or very cloudy rather, because the great library in Alexandria burned down.
Yeah.
And all the wisdom was held there. So everything is a guess. There's no proving any of it. However, I believe, truly, because of that Rhema experience I had with those symbols, and just because of, I just know, does that make sense? That there were probably been tarot cards around for, centuries as a tool of enlightenment or as an oracle. But I would believe, my thought would be, and I don't know if I'm right, that perhaps the Grailists did indeed create a deck of their own so that they could hide their message in it and it would just sort of get lost in the masses,
Yeah, but I do know that during the Inquisition, that's what they did.
Oh, yeah, and during the Inquisition, I would have been burned at the stake because anybody prior to the Inquisition, and a lot of this was, the Roman Catholic Church was, it's political. It was all that in those days, the Crusades and all that. And anybody that could, prior to the Inquisition, people who do what I did had a patron saint. At the Inquisition, the church built, I can't remember, 6 million women or something like that, for practicing these arts, like that we were a cult. Well, I've met you, you've met me. We're obviously not a cult about anything. We're just regular women, But we have a gift, and that's the key. We have a gift.
Mm-hmm. But what I've heard, though, during the Inquisition, they did use some of the tarot cards to hide messages in them.
That's what Margaret Starbird says. That's what her whole thesis is.
They used them, sometimes they would pass a card to someone, and it would be a message that would be with the card. This way they were able to do it without being noticed.
And I agree with that, but I still kind of have my belief that they did come from the Egyptians, and yes, there was probably decks created for different ideas, like the Magdalene theory. I agree with that. But I also think that if all the cards was to talk about the marriage of Jesus to Magdalene, I don't think that's what they are. I don't
think so either.
No.
In the work I've done, I did the Jesus and the Essenes book.
Right, I love that book.
I also printed the book called The Essenes by this couple in England. Well, what we found was that Mary Magdalene was actually an Egyptian priestess, and she was trained in Egypt in all of the mysteries and the secrets.
And they call her, the Black Madonna. They say her skin was dark and swarthy. If there's so many, we'll never really know, but I'm with you on it. I think it's, that's that part of it.
That's why I believe that she would have had, the knowledge of the cards going all the way back, because they were taught these kind of secrets.
Right, because they were the high priestesses in the temple, and they had the gift. From what I had learned, now there's a lot of people out there trying to disprove it, but, I'm long past the point, I think as we get older, and I don't care, you know what I mean? To me, wherever they came from, they came from.
Yeah.
I know what they do now, and what they do now is they open the Akashic record. I absolutely know that because so many times I will see things in a person that I have no way of having any idea. I know the Akashic Record is open through the tarot. Mm-hmm. And you're going to either guide them, into, perhaps it's from a past life, because Buddha always says, if you have a problem, just, meditate and say, what did I do before when I had this problem? Because our lives, well, you're the one, of course, you're the expert on past lives. We've had these problems before. Yeah. And we know how to fix them.
Yeah, that's why I try to help them find the answers.
Right.
But I did have one past life, it's going to be in a book that I'm going to write someday, where a woman went back to where she was a gypsy, and it was back in the 1700s, which isn't that long ago. But in those days, they made their own decks, and they had to draw the symbols and color them. And they said this way they put their own power into their deck because it was very personal that way.
And people have asked me that, are you going to create a deck? Well, you said we have our talents. I can do two things. I can read tarot cards and I can cook. Aside from that, I can't draw a straight line. So I don't think I could ever draw a deck. But, but I find most of the decks seem to be based on the 1920s Rider-Waite. That seems to be the one that people just respond to. It's a good teaching deck for anybody that's listening out there. If you want to learn the cards, the pictures on them are just so wide open, and they talk to you. And they're the ones I use to teach, because after you learn the Rider-Waite or the Universal Waite deck, they're the same. The Rider-Waite and the Universal Waite have the same pictures. However, the Rider-Waite only is colored with 4 colors, and the Universal Waite is colored with many colors. They're just brighter and prettier. That's why I like them. Okay. But they have messages in them, and the message is the same. That's why it's an oracle. If you and I or anybody out there, we all chose one card and looked at it, we would all arrive at similar conclusions. It's the way it is. It's an oracle.
But, before we go on to the other part, there's another card that a lot of people have a negative feeling for, and that's the Hanged Man.
Right.
And, they always show it in the movies when their gypsy is doing the reading, and these are supposed to be very evil cards, the Death, the Devil, and the Hanged Man.
Again, the connotation.
That's not a bad card, is it?
No. That's a connotation from the Inquisition. Basically, what the Hanged Man is if you look at it, the positioning of the Hanged Man, during the medieval times, the feet were actually symbolic of the genitals.
Oh.
And the Hanged Man is upside down, and he's hung by his foot. And what they're saying is that's like part of the torture of the Inquisition and things like that.
Yeah.
And the positioning, all that, is it actually goes back to the Inquisition. However, what the Hanged Man really means, as far as, where the pictures come from, I've heard it all, I've read it all, it's a stagnation energy. The Hanged Man is a reversed man who is his right foot, rather. His right foot is hung, and his left foot is crossed behind him.
Yeah.
And he has a halo around his head. And basically, you can read that card as you are in a stagnation point. You have to make a choice. You have to move forward. You're tied, but you have around your head, you have this golden halo. You have the
also he's smiling.
Right. And you have the intuition, and you have the knowledge, and you have the power, but you're doing it to yourself, again, much like the devil, the Hanged Man, the devil, disempowerment that we do to ourselves. I think it's all self-involved,
Yeah, I always interpret it as waiting for something.
Exactly. It's like a limbo card. You're just waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
But all readers have their own interpretations, but what I found to be the most interesting is that everybody kind of ends up arriving at the same conclusion. And I just love that because it just proves over and over again that it's an oracle.
Mm-hmm. That's the main thing, though, that I stay away from negativity also.
Well, yeah, because your energy, you have that Queen of Cups energy, which is the psychic, the tuned into the universe, the very love, the gold energy, the blue, the aura. You have like the energy that you don't want to hurt anybody, and you won't hurt anybody, and you don't want anyone else. You just want the world to be loving. That's what you feel like, and that's the Queen of Cups, which is actually the dedication page in Rebirth of the Oracle, because Queens of Cups are the ones who have these gifts. Or not we all have them, but who use them.
Yeah, because that's what I tell people. Everyone has psychic abilities. It's not something weird that just come to a few like they show in the movies. Everybody has this. We just choose not to use them.
I agree with you, and I think a lot of people are afraid of them. And I think due to the fact that there was so much control and tyranny by various religious groups because of our psychic development was held down. But now we're in a new age. I'm still Christian, I'm still spiritual, but I also believe that I have unlocked a portion of my mind. You have, many people have, and other people look at us, like, wow, what's wrong with them? There's nothing wrong with us. I think we're just a jump ahead as far as using the next corner of the mind,
Well, that's why the one I had on my program last week, and you will meet him when you come to the conference, was Father Pat. He was a Catholic priest for 18 years before he left the church. And he was trying to say the same things, is that you can combine religion with metaphysics, the spirituality, and it's like a bridge. You can do it, and you don't lose anything either.
A lot, what I found, and I don't know if this is just peculiar to the area that I live in, which is, the Midwest, but a lot of people who are into metaphysics are they're all very good people. I have to say unequivocally, all of them are good people.
Yeah, I haven't met anyone that's bad unless...
But many of them are lapsed Catholics, and I have noticed that.
Yeah.
So they have the background of, what we were taught, strong, belief in the beauty of the Virgin Mary and, the saints and all those things, which go all the way back to the pagan times. They go to Isis, they go to the gods and goddesses, and they're brought up into Christianity. But I think that what's happening now is the doors are opening wide, and everybody that I know who is like I am has a deep spirituality, would never want to hurt anybody, which I think is the greatest, love one another. But we just open a new door. You've been doing it for years. Yeah,
the main thing is karma, not to hurt anyone.
Right.
And, to do the very best you can.
Right.
Oh, I want you to go into the code cards, but also remember I'm going to have to watch the clock because I'll have to stop at a certain time.
Okay. I'm looking. I have a digital cross me. It says 8:39.
Okay, before we do, I would like you to tell people about the man that, I don't know if you want to mention his name or not, the man who you did the reading for, and then he won the $1 million on the, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Sure, I'll be glad to tell him. What it was, his name is Bob Essig, and he doesn't mind. Actually, his blurb's on the back of my book. And Bob is my daughter's age, about 34, married to his wife's name is Stacy. They had a little girl. And he used to come to get his cards read, and he worked as an IT person at University Hospitals of Cleveland. And he would come and get his cards read with his wife, and he always had this Ace of Pentacles directly in front of him. And when I did the numbers with my mind, which I couldn't go into over the phone, I always said to him, this was several years ago, probably when he was about 30, I said, Bobby, before you reach the age of 35, you're going to be a millionaire. And he'd look at me and laugh, and he'd go, how? I said, I don't know, but it has nothing to do with luck, nor is it inheritance. And I never think about TV shows. Who thinks of that? Yeah. I said, all you have to do is look for it. It's right in front of you. And of course, he got on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and when he came home, he said I was one of the first people that he called. He said, as he sat there pondering should he go for the $1 million question, he remembered his reading. And he was at the time 33 or 34, and he said, I'm just going to go for it because that's what the card said, and of course he won it. And the way he won it, the irony of that was that his last question had something to do with, like, what was 1992